Welcome back for another great video. For this trip, it's to Big Bend National Park. From Baytown, Texas to the park, it was a little over a 9-hour drive for 588 miles. The whole time we were in Texas, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of how big the state is. For this trip, I went with a coworker of mine and her daughter, and we drove through the night to make sure we got there bright and early to hit the park and hit some trails. So Big Bend is in the southwest part of Texas. It does run alongside the Rio Grande. So here in a little bit, when you see the waterway, that is actually Mexico across the water. There's a little town over there where people come across and sell some of their craft goods on an honor system. They had some neat things crafted, and there was a couple guys trying to sell us some tamales, which I politely said no, don't buy things from a stranger. But the water is pretty. It was nice and green and some blues. It was very cold. We tried to go a little bit into the waterway, but with the current, it just wasn't safe, nor is it legal to go over to Mexico. But we wanted to at least see what the water was like. And the rocks felt like I was stepping on Legos, so it hurt a little bit, but we checked out the water and we enjoyed it. Big Bend is a really cool place to go for camping. I enjoyed it. It was kind of chilly at night in the 30s, but during the days it got into the 50s, and this was the first week of January. It was nice because we didn't hardly see any animals at all. We saw some mustangs, maybe one or two coyotes, and I saw a couple deer. It was a good time of the year to go. Wasn't very busy, even though the camp website said that it was fully booked, but it wasn't, so it's a good time of the year to go. I didn't feel unsafe at all anywhere in the park, especially with it being right next to the border. It was kind of leery where we thought maybe it might be a little unsafe, but at no point in time during this whole entire trip did I feel unsafe at any time. So if you're a person that likes to camp by yourself, it's still a good park to go try. It's one of those ones I definitely wouldn't go during the summer because it is very hot. And though there is shade, but it's still a hot place to go to. So if you ever want to go out to Big Bend, definitely go during the winter time. Just make sure you have the right equipment when you go camping, or if you do go camping for the nighttime, because it does get pretty chilly out. There are lodging out in the park, but if you're a camper, this is definitely a great place to go because the campsite is actually in the mountains into a valley. And it's a really beautiful sight to wake up to and watch the sunset at dinner time. So I recommend going out and giving it a try. I will say though, with the camping, I recommend that you would go online to the government website because they can sell pretty quickly. So I wouldn't take the time to drive all the way out there because the closest gas station is in Marathon, which is 80 miles from the entrance of the park. So check out the website. Sign up, make a reservation. It's not very much money, actually. I want to say it was about $15 a day, if I remember right, when I made the reservation. So definitely make a reservation if you plan on going out there to go in a tent versus showing up and then being out of luck. There are showers in the park, but there's only 2 of them, and they're on the opposite ends of the park. So you have to drive about 20 miles one way just to get to the showers. It's ran by quarters, so you have to get quarters from the gas station that's right there. And there are gas stations in the park. I was a little leery, thinking that we were going to run out of gas. And I was told there was one gas station, so I thought that was it. But there actually is, if I remember, about 3 or 4 gas stations. So no worries on the gas and running out unless the gas station themselves run out of gas, but we had no problems. But I would definitely fill up in Marathon since it is the last town in case something goes wrong before you make it to the park, since it is at 80 miles. There are convenience stores. They have a little bit of products, but not a whole lot. So at this section, we're heading to the campsite. It's another couple miles in, so it's a really good drive to check it out. There are bears and cougars in the park, but yet again, we never did see one the whole entire time we were there. But then again, they may have been hibernating still for the season. This park also has RV camp reservation sites, so if you're not much for tent camping or want to go to the lodge, you can pull out your RV. I also think it's a really good park to take your motorcycle out to because there's a lot of winding roads and the views are great to see, especially if you're a person that sits on the back of the motorcycle. You'll have the best seat in the house. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history about Big Bend. You can actually find it on the nationalparks.gov website. But the Big Bend has been around and home to people for many centuries, but knowledge of the Rio Grande among the non-Indians date back less than 150 years. Spanish people crossed the Rio Grande in the 16th and 17th century, searching for gold, silver, and fertile land. Comanche Indians crossed the river in the 19th century, traveling to and from Mexico with their raiding parties. Mexican settlers began farming on both sides of the bank of the river's floodplains around the 1900s. Anglo-Americans joined in the farming after the 1920s. When the boundary unrest ended, cotton and food crops were grown around this area. Up ahead, there's an older gentleman. We met him yesterday. I believe he was in his 80s. So when I say that you can do anything you want to at any age, this guy is the perfect example. He was just trekking along as fast as he could. He was enjoying his time. And, age yet doesn't matter. So get out there, give it a shot, see some good sights, and get some fresh air. For this trail, if you would like to complete the whole thing, you're going to have to cross the water. So be prepared to take off your shoes, maybe bring some flip-flops if you would like, or just take a small towel to wipe off your feet. Otherwise, you can just sit, take in the views, and let your feet dry. We did not know this going into it, so our feet got wet, but we still enjoyed it all the same. This is the Lost Mine Trail. It's a 4.8 mile round trip with a little over 1,100 foot elevation gain. This is, I believe, the most popular trail in the whole park from what I was reading. I wished I'd done a little bit more research on this trail because the trail name is perfect. I never found the mine. It is definitely lost. I spent a good little while trying to find the mine, never found it, and at a certain point I decided it was time to turn around because once the sun would pass over the mountain, I knew it was going to be dark and I really didn't want to be out there getting cold and not being familiar with the area. So for this one, it's a good trail. I liked it. It was definitely a little bit difficult. It's a moderate level. I like my tacos and I am out of shape, even though I do marathons, but I'm still out of shape. And it was a little bit of a difficult one, but still all the same, I made it. I definitely would take trekking poles yet again for those steep inclines to kind of help give you a stable step, because some of the areas has rocks that are loose where you're climbing up rocks. So if you ever go out there, take some trekking poles with you to help you get up these gains. This is Emory Peak Trail. It's a 10.4 mile round trip trail with a 2,522 foot elevation gain. If you look at alltrails.com, it says it's a hard level, but I would seriously put this one as a strenuous trail. Because on your way up, it is nothing but sheer uphill climb most of the way, but it's great on the way down because you can get it down a little bit quicker because it's pretty much all downhill. Definitely take your trekking poles through this one because just like the Lost Mine, it's got some loose rocks here and there, and it's always nice to have that extra point to grab onto something to help you get there. This one took me maybe about 5.5, 6 hours round trip. I was averaging about 2 miles per hour, which was what I really wanted to do to get up there because I didn't want to spend all day up there. Because even though it was 50 degrees outside, it would still get a little warm out, and there was a lot of sun, so I really didn't want to get sunburned. And for this one, I definitely sweated my tail off with all that climbing. I actually met a gentleman up here. He was from the San Antonio area, and he's about to move out to the Houston area, to Webster, for those of you that know this area. We chit-chatted with a little bit, and this guy was completing this one plus the Northern Rim Trail. He was going for, I believe it is a 20-mile round trip hike for what he was doing, because Emory Peak for him was 5 miles, and then the Northern Rim, if I remember right, it's about 15 miles, and he was trying to get all in one day. So kudos to that guy, but no thank you, I will pass. But all the same, I enjoyed this trail. Even though it was hard, it was my favorite one of all the ones. Though there is a lot of good trails out there, Emory Peak was really cool because there was the highest point in the whole park. And at the top were some cell phone towers, so I was actually able to take photos and give mom and dad a call and show them where I was sitting at while I told them what I did. And it was definitely quite the accomplishment in my eyes for how much of a strain it was to get there, because on my way down, people that started later in the day and I started at daylight, they weren't even, I'd say, a quarter of the way, and they looked like they were already tired. To get to the top of this peak though, it was a little sketchy, having to climb up some rocks. So if you're not a rock climber, you can get pretty close, but not all the way. Shut the front door. So this was one of the deers out there. I almost missed this guy. Had he not made one small peep, I never even noticed that he was there. So I took the time, watched him eat, and he was the only animal I saw on the whole entire trail. Though there was a lot of animal droppings out there. almost done. Finally. It's a good trail, but I am definitely glad to be done. Up ahead, you see a placard for a Stephen Mathers. You've seen him in some of my other videos. He was an American industrialist and a conservationist. He was the first president of the national parks, and he did a lot of work throughout the states over his lifetime. So that's why when you go to parks, you often see his face on placards and his name around the areas because of how much he did to help out our parks. So this wraps up our video for this time. It was a great trip, but now we're going to watch the sunset go down, pack up our stuff early in the morning to make sure we make the trek of the 9 hours to get back home before work on Friday. So I will see you guys again. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in a few months at Zion National Park in the southwest part of Utah for another great trip of see what we have in our backyard of the United States.